Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Sioux Falls Health Connection. I'm Dr. Joe Moen with Origin Health Chiropractic and Wellness, and today I'm honored to bring you my buddy Andy Kontz of the Sioux Empire home team at eXp Realty. Andy is a leukemia survivor, and today he shares with us his incredible story of the ups and downs of being diagnosed with leukemia, through the chemo treatments, and finally a bone marrow transplant, and being granted a second lease on life. And what inspires me about Andy is he's taken that second lease on life and just pouring into our Sioux Falls community and just giving as much as he can. Specifically the nurses and our medical community that are really working overtime for us right now and carried him along his health journey too. Andy's an amazing human being, and I hope that you can gain as much inspiration from his journey as I have. Enjoy. Well, Andy, welcome back to Origin Health. You've been here a few times before in the past. I'm excited about this today. I've known you for a number of years now, and your story, I've always said you need to be writing a book because your story is crazy. But I wanted to share it with everybody because I think there's a lot we can learn from it, and as far as just pushing through and the mental aspect and dealing with stuff that's hard. So can you kind of walk us through your health history here? I know it's a little bit nuts, but your diagnosis and everything that followed after that.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Joe. So, up in most of my life, I've been, fairly healthy guy. Never really been in the hospital, anything like that. And then I hit my 30s and kind of fell apart, had my tonsils taken out. I started getting ear infections, just some weird stuff like that. But it wasn't anything major.
Well, they say everything falls apart at 30, right?
It does. Thursday was rough. 30s were rough on me. But, it was also good too. I'd gone through a divorce and decided to get kind of in the best shape of my life. And I spent 2 years working out 5-6 days a week at Farrell's. And, I was actually feeling really good. And one day we were hanging out at my house and we were going to put some food on the smoker. And just all of a sudden I felt like I just had to sit down, and I'm an active guy, and I went and kind of sat on the couch, and next thing you know, I slept for 3 hours. So I thought I had the flu. I couldn't walk up the stairs or anything like that without getting tired. And again, I didn't go to the hospital because, the flu, what are they going to do? Mm-hmm. So I waited. And after about 3 weeks of that, I was feeling a little bit better. My wife at the time was going through nursing school in Texas. I went down and visited her and just was continually feeling lightheaded. We took my blood pressure when we were down there at one of the little machines at Walmart or Walgreens, mm-hmm. whatever it was, and it was just insanely low. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but I know that it was low. But I didn't want to go to the emergency room or anything down there because if it was something serious, I didn't want to be stuck in Texas when, my work and my kids were in Sioux Falls.
Sure, yeah.
So I came up here, I drove back on a Sunday. I think it was Monday. I still wasn't feeling good. I had a class all day on Tuesday. And after I got done, I was just a mess. So I called Ask a Nurse and said, hey, these are my symptoms. Should I go to the ER? Should I go to urgent care? Because it was about 4:15 when I did this. And they said, we think you should go to the emergency room. So I went into, just after 5, I think it was, I went into the emergency room at Sanford. And, they kind of made it seem a little bit like, mm-hmm. Are you sure this is an emergency? You don't want to just wait till come back and see your doctor in the morning. But they did a few things. And they said, hey, let's draw your blood. And about 30-45 minutes later they came back in and said, you're severely anemic, there's definitely something wrong, we're going to admit you and start running some tests.
Okay.
So that's kind of when I was like,
this
isn't probably good. Yes. And because and it didn't take them that long where they said there's something wrong with your marrow.
Okay.
So then they didn't say what it was, but then you immediately go to thinking it was probably leukemia.
Mm-hmm. AML.
Yes, yep.
And That's not the one you want to have if you have leukemia, correct?
Correct, yes. So with like AML, it comes on really quickly, and you either have to stop it fast or it overwhelms you. Or if you have, like the chronic one, it's slower, but it's a little bit harder to cure.
Sure.
That I don't want to use the word cure, but get you through for a while.
Sure.
And so once they finally, after I think it was two and a half days, they finally said, "Hey, you've got AML." I think it was the hospital that said, "Hey, this is what you have." We haven't officially said that, but this is what they're going to tell you. So, we don't know if you're going to need a bone marrow transplant or what, but with leukemia, from what I understand, basically you have these cells in your body called blast cells, which are baby cells, and they can kind of grow up and become anything.
Okay.
And with mine, they would just started flooding the system, and they just never matured. So it was just flooding and killing out or taking over where the red and the white blood cells would normally function.
Okay.
And so at mine, it was 40% of my blood was that. And to get you what they consider a remission, it's 5%.
Okay.
So that was the goal with the first round of chemo. And I had never knew anybody that had cancer, no history, any of that. So I didn't even know what chemo was. So they started hooking me up daily to bags of stuff, all different colors. Had one that's bright orange. And you can imagine what your urine looks like when you're drinking, neon orange stuff. But as I was going through that first round of chemo, I literally felt nothing. Only thing, that I knew other than I was tired is like I was laying in bed one day at the hospital and like my beard started rubbing off in giant clumps. And
oh my goodness.
So I called my person that was my stylist and said, "Can you come and shave my head?" And just because I was tired of waking up to a mouthful of hair.
Yeah.
So that was quite interesting. And where I was at the hospital, like you couldn't leave the unit. You were stuck there. So it was like prison.
So you knew about quarantine before this whole deal?
Yes. It was bad. Just so boring.
Yeah.
And like at that hospital, you couldn't have my kids. They couldn't come on the unit.
Yeah.
And so I basically had to gown up. They had to gown up. And we went into this one little room, and I got to see them like once every few days in this little room for a little bit. And they were younger, so they were kind of freaked out.
Yeah.
So after my family, they all live about 60 miles from me. And after the first round of chemo, then they have to wait a few days to see what works.
Sure.
And then they go in and drill into your hip basically and suck out the marrow and kind of see what's what.
Sure.
And I'll never forget it because the doctor came in and, there were kind of rotating doctors between a few different doctors. And she came in and said, unfortunately it didn't work. So I'm like, okay, how much did it go down? And she said it didn't go down. It actually went from 40% to 80%.
Oh my goodness.
So 80% of my blood was the blast cells.
So you're going the wrong way.
I was going the wrong way. And they said, basically, you've got one more shot. And if the second round of chemo doesn't work, then,
game over?
Yeah, basically, yeah, you better start
doing
that. And like I said, the first round of chemo, I had no side effects other than hair falling out. So I'm like feeling completely normal. And they're telling me like, if this next one doesn't work, I'm going to die. It's like, that was really an eye opener. And my family wasn't there at the time, and they were on their way down. I like tried to call them, and it was like, all I could even get the words out of my mouth that it had failed. So then they started talking, and the hospital where I was diagnosed at, they didn't have, they don't specialize in hematology, oncology, and transplants. So I knew I was going to have to transfer somewhere else. So we started looking around to different hospitals. One was Mayo, one was University of Minnesota, one was in Nebraska or at Omaha. And we finally decided Avera here in town.
Okay.
They do that, and after looking at some of the doctors and doing some research, that Dr. McCall, Kelly McCall, he's like one of the best in the U.S., and he just happens to be in Sioux Falls, and so that's when I transferred over to Avera
for your second round.
For my second round of chemo, yes.
And then, so that had to have been a shock, and how did you keep from? Well, maybe we should move on to the next part, because the next part, it gets happier, right? So you did your second round.
So I went over there, and he's been doing this for a long time. He's like, okay, these are the drugs you should be doing. Let's get you doing that. And again, the whole goal is to get you to that 5% or less.
Yeah.
And almost immediately I knew something was happening because I started to feel terrible, which is was a good thing. And so went through another, 10 days or something of chemo. And then you got to wait to make sure everything's run. And then they test you again. And at that point, it dropped below 5%.
Okay.
So that's when they actually finally start searching for a donor, because they're not going to go through the process if you don't get below that 5%. So, and so I went in, I think it was November 18th of 2013. And they finally let me out of the hospital for the first time on New Year's Eve. So I'd spent 40 some days in the hospital bed. And, that really changes how you look at life. And, it's almost like a TV. You're sitting there looking, and everybody keeps coming in and out of the door, and that's changing your stations. But yeah, if you don't have the right attitude, then it could be a major drain.
And you weren't out of the woods yet, right?
No.
I mean, the chemo got you to below that 5%. Now you got to find a transplant because your marrow isn't going to cut it, right?
Right. Yep. So basically they said, they went through and did all the genetic testing and said, yep, you're going to have a transplant. So now we go find it. We're hoping it's one of your siblings because that's the easiest. So that's where they started. And unfortunately, basically you have to have a 10 out of 10 match on certain markers. And none of my siblings were a match like that. The best, I think, was like an 8 out of 10, which would have been like a C- donor. So that's when they started searching, all the bone marrow banks to see what they could find.
All over the world, right?
They start with the U.S., from what I understand,
Okay.
and then they did that and couldn't find anyone. Okay. So then they started searching worldwide. And again, I'll never forget, I went for an appointment, and for them, kind of in the Midwest, we're all European descent. So they were thinking there'd probably be 8, 10, even 20, 30 donors, there'd probably be matches.
Yeah.
So, I didn't even think,
not even
entertain, thought, that we couldn't find a donor. And, I went in there expecting him to tell you, hey, we got these donors. And he said, basically, we can't find a donor.
Okay.
And again, that was another one of those moments like, okay, we'll get through this. But as I walked out, I was by myself that day, and, my mom, she was waiting to hear back from me, and I called her, and I literally couldn't produce words to even say, they can't find a donor. And if they can't, again, it really quickly could be a game over, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, they said, all right, we're going to keep searching, but you're going to have to do another round of chemo to keep it at bay. So I had to go back into the hospital and get that third round of chemo. If I remember correctly, and the mind's a little foggy because they pumped a lot of drugs into me, but at that time, it was one of the nights I was feeling just terrible, and I just told my nurse, I'm like, there is just something wrong. And so they came in, and they think it was an infection somewhere, they don't know, but I went to the ICU, and I have no memory of that. It's just kind of a blur. Like the day I got out of ICU, Kettleland came and did an interview. I don't remember doing that interview at all.
No offense,
just nothing at all. And I think actually, I think it was one of the other stations did too. And I just have no recollection of that other than when I watched the repeats of it. I'm like, oh,
there I was.
There I was. But yeah, just mine was a kind of an aggressive form of AML, or so my oncologist said. And he said, if I was standing on a road and got hit by a car doing 55 miles an hour and broke every bone in my body, that would be better than what he's doing to me internally.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like,
so after that infection and being in the ICU, and from what it sounds like, being on your deathbed again, kind of what happened next?
Sure. So that's when they, I got out and they started searching, the worldwide database. and nothing showed up there. So then they were thinking they're going to have to do a transplant with one of my siblings, and they didn't say which one, but again, it was kind of a Hail Mary, we have to do something. And during that time, from again, my understanding is they started searching people that had been kicked off the database for whatever reason. And at that time, they found one person that was a match, perfect match, that had been kicked off.
In the whole world?
In the entire world.
One other human?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, and so we're just kind of waiting because they don't kind of tell you what's going on. They're like, we're trying to figure it out. And later I kind of found out that, he lived in Germany. And if you lived in Germany or Europe in a certain time frame, you could have been exposed to mad cow disease. Oh. So basically I had to sign off saying if I get mad cow disease from the transplant, that nobody's liable for it. I'm like, yes, I'll sign up.
Whatever, absolutely.
So then, then they start getting the process ready. And so for me, it's involved one more final round of chemo where they completely kill off your entire immune system so that you can stick his immune system in, and hopefully it starts repopulating and kind of takes over. Mm-hmm. During that time for him, he was getting, I think it's called Neupogen shots, which kind of get his, cells growing, and stem cells. So get his stem cells really going, and eventually they just kind of pop out of his blood and just cover his body. So the last day of my chemo, they go into him and basically stick in two things in each arm and suck it out, take the stem cells out, and then stick the blood back in. And so they don't actually do like a serious actual bone marrow transplant anymore. It's just stem cells.
Oh, okay.
So basically they did that, grabbed that, put it in a bag, just one bag. It looks like a bag of like orange high C and a courier gets that and he jumps on an airplane, literally flies from Germany to Sioux Falls, gets in a cab, goes to the ER, hands it off to them, and gets on a plane and goes back. And the ER, they do whatever they need to do. And the actual transplant itself was it was like a 7-minute IV drip.
Wow.
That's the transplant.
Kind of anticlimactic.
It's very anticlimactic. Because you got all these people there. I mean, there's there's probably nurses, doctors, all these people. And, some family there. And 7 minutes, huh?
And then it's done.
And then it's like, all right, let's see what happens. And, they say, you'll be fine. And then all of a sudden it's going to hit and your body's going to be kind of shell-shocked and doesn't know what's going on. And it's trying to react. And it gets really bad. And you should plan to be, in the hospital for at least 30 days. If it's less, great, but it could be, a lot more. And even for the first 100 days, I have to be within 15 minutes of the hospital at all times.
Oh my goodness.
And that's another reason why I decided to stay in town.
Yeah.
And I think it was by day 6, 7, 8, just giant lumps in my throat. It was all I could do to just swallow. It was just insanely painful. And by day 14 or 15, it was almost back to normal. I think day 16 or day 17, I was out.
Really? And then how many years ago was this?
So that would have been 2014. April 2nd of 2014 was my transplant date. So yeah, so
we just passed the 6-year anniversary.
Just 6 years, yes.
And you are cancer-free at this point.
Yes, knock on wood.
Knock on wood. Well, congratulations.
So we did that and everything was going good. I was feeling good and, I started working out again and, I was engaged at the time. And I'll never forget, we were going to go to Minneapolis to a Twins game for my bachelor party. And on the way up, I just started feeling horrible. We stopped, and had dinner or lunch and, had a margarita and I took 2 drinks out of that. I was like, God, this stinks, and we got up there and checked in the hotel and, I just kind of slept. And this wasn't normally me. I was feeling probably back to 60 or 70%. And, we went to the Twins game and I literally just couldn't even stand. I think I lasted an inning and I felt, I'm going to pass out if I stay here any longer. So they took me back to, we got on a pedal bike and 2 of my friends and me and the poor guy that had to pedal us back to the hotel, felt sorry for him. But I went back to the hotel and just kind of felt terrible. And, they had my bachelor party without me.
Yeah.
And the next day we went back to Sioux Falls. I thought about going to the ER in Minneapolis, but again, if it was something, I didn't want to be stuck there. So I went back there and immediately went to the ER, and they said I had an infection, I had pneumonia, and kind of since then, I've really struggled to get more than 30 to 40% of what my body was before, even after all the treatments and stuff. So it's definitely not been an easy road, but it definitely beats the alternative.
So by my count, so you first had the chemo that didn't take, you were told the chemo didn't take, then you ended up in the ICU with infection and no immune system, basically on your deathbed. And you're told that there is no match in the whole world.
Right.
How do you keep your mindset in a place where you don't just throw your hands up and say, all right, this is it, I'm done?
I honestly don't know. Until you're faced with something like that, you don't know how you're going to react. And I never want to know the odds because if you do, you're probably going to resign yourself to that. So I just said, I'm going to beat this, what, no matter what. And, I was getting married, I had two boys from a previous marriage. And, I just had in my mind that I didn't want to leave my boys, because, that thing they would have of not having a dad that, they kind of miss. I didn't want to leave them with that. So I was like, all I want to do is focus on the positives. So, I do affirmations daily. I would not watch sad stuff. I didn't want to look. I never, even Googled to see, odds, or what it is. I don't want to know.
So you're just flooding or just forcing yourself to stay as positive as possible.
Yes.
And just deciding this isn't how I'm going out.
Yes.
And then here we are 6 years later. Almost like, and you and I had kind of talked about this before, but not too often do people essentially get a second chance or a second go at life, right? And you're able to see things through a different perspective, pair of lenses that a lot of people, we don't have that because you're kind of faced with that.
Right.
That second chance. How is that? How has it changed you from 7 years ago to where you're at today?
Sure. I guess the way I looked at it is like, if cancer is, everybody knows somebody's got cancer, and more likely somebody in your family is going to get it. So the way I looked at it is, if somebody had to get it, it's on me. Okay. I'd rather have me than my family or my parents or my kids. So, it's on me to do this. And, I'm not a super religious guy, but, I have my beliefs, and I think there's a reason I had to go through it. And that's the way I looked at it. And just things had to go right so many times where they probably shouldn't have. And I don't even know if I told you this story, but like that first time I was doing my first round of chemo, my wife Billy had driven up. She was finishing nursing school, and she'd driven up and spent a few days with me, and then had to leave at like 4 a.m. to drive back to Texas. And she called me, it was probably about 6:30, and she's like, some guy tried to pull me over in a fake police car, and she just happened to sense something was wrong because she was in the middle of nowhere south of Omaha. And again, this person tried to stop her, put the lights on, and then when she pulled over, shut all of the lights off. And that was what, got her to say, this is not right. And so she took off and then called 911, and they said, no, this is not an actual, not an actual law enforcement. He was chasing her and trying to run her off the road, and finally she got close enough to where, a city that she got off, and he kept going. But just like little things like that, where again, it could have gone horribly wrong, and I had no control over it.
Yeah.
But again, just the positive mindset and belief, it's kind of carried me.
And does that transition into your businesses and how you operate even on a daily basis now?
Yes. So, I've been a real estate agent since 2001, and, I was kind of, you do the things you've always, you taught you do cold calling and stuff like that. And it's more transactional. And after that, I was like, no, this is all got to be relationship based. There has to be a higher purpose for that.
Right.
And so that's kind of when I started I got to see all the stuff that nurses do day in and day out. And, like I said, my wife was going through it, and I gained such a tremendous don't even know what the right word is. Respect
Yeah.
For what they do day in and day out. Yeah, the doctors, they got their specialty and they do that, but everything that the nurses do and help you out with and just make sure you're taken care of. I was just flabbergasted. Yeah, it was crazy.
And so that kind of leads us into your newest project. So you have your realty side of things, but you've also, over the past, year and a half maybe? With the
almost three now.
Almost three.
Almost three,
Wow.
yes.
Time flies.
So,
having fun.
Yeah, so as I was getting better, I was like, I want to give back to the nurses. I just don't know how. And so originally I started out, my prior career was in law enforcement. I was like, hey, I want to, I still have a lot of love for them and there's some stuff going on. And I was like, hey, I want to give back to them. And so we went to coffee shops and, again, I said, hey, come down, I'm going to buy you some coffee and a bagel. And there's only like 15 people that showed up. So
Yeah.
And then as we're doing that, my wife is there and she's like, see all those nurses coming in? You talked about doing something for the nurses. Why don't you do something with the nurses? So yes, my wife is much smarter than me. Said, let's do that. So I was like, yeah, that's perfect. Again, something obvious that I should have saw. But so I'm like, let's do this. So I invited all the nurses in Sioux Falls to one of the coffee shops. And again, all I want to do is just say thank you because so many of them have helped me. And I think for the very first event we did, and again, I threw this out to all the nurses, we had almost 100 nurses show up for that first event. And they were just so grateful that, someone was actually showing them appreciation.
Right.
And I think they're really, they are the backbone, but they're also really underappreciated. So I was like, this works. I like this. And so we just started doing it every 2 months. And it's crazy how it's taken off from there.
Well, I think, I am blessed to have a nurse in my life too. My wife Kelsey is a nurse, and your wife Billy is a nurse. And so just what you and I see them go through on a personal level, and then you had the opposite side where you got to see what they did for you and how they carried you through a lot of your treatments and things. But I think everybody has nurses in their lives that have helped them in some way. And I would agree they're underappreciated and they're overworked and all of the things, right? And so this event has really blown up, right? I mean, this last one you had, there was hundreds that came?
Yeah, so normally we have it just at one of the Caribou coffee shops, Thursday morning, 6 to 9. And now that, they just come in. And now with everything that's going on, we just did it as a drive-through event because we want to be safe and we don't want to expose anybody else to anything else. So we just did it as a drive-through event and just had them register online before the event. We had 385 people register, and I think 270 actually show up for the event. So
that's amazing. And you're just giving them a free cup of coffee. You're just trying to give back to them a little bit.
Yeah. So we give them a cup of coffee and a bagel with a schmear, and then we have other businesses that give donate prizes or cash or stuff like that. Then I give away stuff. And so again, it's just all about giving back to the nurses.
Yeah.
And Caribou's been an amazing partner with us on that. And with all this stuff that's going on with the coronavirus, Caribou's they've helped us. They've been donating coffee, so we buy coffee and bagels. And every day for the past 2 or 3 weeks, we've been dropping off coffee to different units throughout Sioux Falls. We've done pizzas, and we're just continuing to figure out how we can give back, to the medical and healthcare professionals, specifically the nurses.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if other businesses who are watching this they can reach out to you. How can people get a hold of you? How can they, through you, give back to the nurses as well?
Sure. So you can either go to the Sioux Falls Nurses Facebook page. You can find me on there, or my personal page, Addie Kontz. And I've got a couple of Facebook fundraisers going. And again, we just use literally all that money. I don't take any of it. It all goes to, we're basically using it to buy food or coffee for the nurses. And now with restaurants struggling, we're hoping this will help them get business as well. So that's what we're currently working on, is a fundraiser that basically the money comes to us. We go spend it at businesses that are slow, and we take it to different units in different hospitals, all around Sioux Falls, even Canton, Harrisburg, we've done stuff like that. And again, it's just about giving back to them, you know, because they're so stressed right now, and you know, nobody knows what's going to happen. You don't know the person you're talking to if they've got it or not, and you know, it's just been phenomenal. And you know, we've raised a decent amount of money, but you know, we really want to go a lot deeper on that, just because there are so many nurses out there, and you know, they deserve to be loved. Yeah,
and not only nurses, but also the care techs and, you know, the cleaning people and everyone that makes the hospitals and all these.
And I should say, when I say nurses, I mean, we focus on the nurses, but yeah, everybody that's at the hospital, even the doctors. But yeah, I mean, even cleaning people, techs, security, everybody, you know, everybody's kind of, you know, running on pins and needles. So if we can kind of just give them some levity and just, you know, let them take a break.
Just show them some appreciation and some love.
And I'm still working on, I'm trying to find a way to do like a happy hour for them. So, you know, they can stop and pick up whatever 3 little samples of wine or something, kind of like a drive-through, and do like a Zoom, but we'll see if I can make that happen or not. But I just think, you know, like I said, anything we can do to help them out. And
something else you got coming up, we're good. The t-shirts, right? And you're wearing one right now.
So I'm wearing one of the t-shirts now. And hopefully by the time this airs, we'll have it up. But you're going to be able to go online and buy. We're going to have 5 different shirts you can buy. And again, in the front, it's just going to have funny nurse sayings or positive nurse sayings. Then on the back, we have some sponsor stuff for people that have been contributing and helping with the nurses. And
again, you're not taking any money.
No, all of the proceeds are going to be used to basically, again, buy more food and coffee and caffeine for the nurses, and for us to spoil them. And I don't keep any of it. For the proceeds are all going to go for that. So, you know, you're going to be able to go to shirts, the number 4, and then nurses.com. So
and we'll link we'll tag all that stuff below and all that stuff, as well as your fundraisers that we're currently going on. Wendy, I want to thank you for sitting down with me and sharing your story. You've always been an inspiration to me and helped me in a number of different ways with our business and my mindset and all that stuff. And I just want to acknowledge you for, you know, you were given a second chance and you were just pouring into everyone else. You could run with this your second chance and just be all about you and do whatever, but you're just pouring it into as many people as you can.
Right. I mean, I just feel like, you know, there's a reason I'm still here, and if I, you know, didn't help people benefit from it, then, you know, that it was a waste. You know, I'm living on borrowed time, and I know that. And at any point, this could come back. I mean, you know, I just hit my 6 years, and kind of 5 is the magical point. If you get to 5, then your odds of it coming back drop. So, but you know, but the odds of that, me making this far, have only been like 16, 17%. So, you know, every day kind of is a bonus. You know. But I still have bad days, you know, I'm still cranky at times, you know, and the body's still definitely messed up from all they did. But, you know, if I can give back and help, that's what I'm here for.
Well, that's amazing. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate your story. I hope that we can drive your nurses event. Again, we'll link everything in the bottom. But if we can just support everyone, and if you can gain some inspiration from Andy's story, and if you're able and willing to help out with the nurses event and just give back to our medical community here in the Sioux Falls area, that would be awesome as well. Anyway, next time we have another person on, we plan to have more stories like this with Andy that are inspirational, that have done some hard stuff. And I know we're all going through some challenging times right now too, but you know, I think as much as we can give to each other and love each other, that'll raise all boats there for us. So thanks, Andy. We appreciate you guys. We love everybody. Have a good rest of your day. Catch you next time.